That's a shot from the first drill hole from this year, and I'd like to shout out to the guys who've probably just signed off for the day and are tuning in via Starlink, and they've probably got faster internet speed than most of us in Western Australia out there in the West Arunta. I'd like to thank the Forum Organisers Committee for inviting us to speak again today, and for the audience here that's stuck around to listen to the Encounter Resources story. Let me tell you a bit about the company. We've been a dedicated greenfields exploration company for some time, with a focus on Western Australia and Northern Territory. We've got an incredible team that we've assembled through that time, led by Dr. John Wronski and Peter Buick on the board. Mark Brody and Sarah James, exploration managers, are also here, and a very deep team of high quality talent that we've been able to attract into our business over time. We've got a strong cash position, and the board still has a bit under 11% of the company, and we've contributed to a number of the capital raisings through time. And we've got also some very supportive corporate and investment fund support on the register. So let me tell you a little bit about our business model. Being in frontier greenfields exploration, sometimes you have to share risk, and that's one thing that we've done very successfully over the last decade. We've moved early onto new government data sets into new regions, including the West Arunta, and then we've looked at ways that we can fund those activities. And over the last 10 or so years, we've had over $35 million come into the company through partnerships with companies such as BHP, Newcrest, South32, IGO and Antofagasta. And that's really enabled us to do some really cutting-edge frontier exploration in Central Australia. We've got an enormous land holding in the Northern Territory and Western Australia, and a very strong pipeline. But today I'm really only going to tell you about two projects: the West Arunta, where we've been finding significant niobium rare earth carbonatites, and I'll just touch on at the end the Sandover Copper Project, where we've just been drilling in north of Alice Springs. So I'm not going to spend time on the commodities. I think Paul from WA1 did a terrific job on the niobium market yesterday. The West Arunta is emerging as a major new source of niobium and rare earths, phosphate, and we think it's going to turn out to be a very productive exploration place for gold and copper as well. That hasn't gone backwards because of the discoveries that have been made over the last 2 years in niobium and rare earths. So that's our camp out there. We've established an ability to get into some of these remote locations and do the early stage exploration. We've done that both for ourselves in our high impact exploration projects and also with our partners. Now, just sort of to take you back, now that's the land tenure package that we hold out there. It's about 150 kilometres east-west. I'm showing you there a magnetic image that we flew 100 metre line spaced. It's an incredible paleoproterozoic geology, huge structures ripping through here, and those structures have tapped the mantle and are bringing carbonatites to surface. And back here in 2020, at Diggers and Dealers, we drilled the first hole into this land package. It was that funny late Diggers. It was in October where it was all super warm, and we called end a hole and we tested. We were looking at those two magnetic features. They were brought to us by a geophysicist called Terry Hosky, and it was probably one of the more challenging drill holes that we've done in our time. Now, Newcrest, it was in joint venture at that point in time. It's now held 100%. They said they'd fund it if we operated, and we managed to do that and push in a track for 30 kilometres to get to those holes, and we drilled the very first hole into that Hosky target. We unfortunately called end of hole while we were driving back between Kalgoorlie and Southern Cross. The rig had broken down. We had 158 metres of core. We got that assayed, and in hindsight you look back and think that's exactly what a near miss in the West Arunta looks like. It had up to 0.8% rare earths, 0.1% niobium, had 0.1% copper, and interestingly it had 50 parts per billion gold in there as well. So that's very much unfinished business in the West Arunta. When we got those assays back, we were fortunate enough to get the project back 100%, and we finished that hole back last year and hit a carbonatite about another couple of 100 metres down that drill hole. In 2022, that's when WA1 really put the West Arunta on the map. They drilled mineralised carbonatites, and they drilled 7 holes. 4 of them are mineralised to our south and to our west, and that was really did change this region. And from our perspective, it's been almost our entire push since that work had validated this region. Since then, we've found 4 new carbonatites along these major structures in the West Arunta, and we're continuing to advance them, and we're looking to do further drilling between now and the end of the year to start putting some size and grade potential around those. So there's a number of targets that are still to be tested. We've done a tremendous amount of baseline geophysical surveys. We did a Falcon gravity survey across this entire district, of the magnetic survey that I talked about, and I think we're really starting to get a handle on what's controlling these carbonatites, and I think the success rate so far out here doesn't happen in a greenfields environment on the whole. You've got probably over half the holes that have been drilled into this region so far have been mineralised with niobium rare earths. We think that's going to continue as we refine our targeting technologies, but we also think there's other things to be found in this this new district that's emerging there in the West Arunta. So let me just zoom in a little bit to show you a close-up of that magnetic image and where we've intersected niobium so far. That's showing the drill plans where we've got assays back. You can see how many of the holes have been incredibly well mineralised along that Elephant Island fault in the north, and 10 kilometres to the south, you can see the Emily and green targets. When we're drilling along these structures, we're finding mineralisation. We've been using an air core rig to map out the surface footprint, and we're now going back with an RC rig that's turning up next week to put some deeper holes into that and understand what the full profile looks like. We announced yesterday an area between Hurley and Crean where we didn't have a lot of information. There was a bit more cover, so we drilled a diamond drill hole, and we hit about 500 metres worth of the carbonatite complex there. We'll get that cut and assayed, and that'll come back in September. But it's telling you just how many times when you're drilling on these major structures here, you're hitting mineralisation, and I think we're really just starting to get a handle on that. So this is up at the north at Crean. Now this is where we started drilling this year. So we went from the known out into the unknown. We had a drill hole there, EAL 008, which we drilled last year, which had 69 metres at 0.8% niobium. It had about 4 metres at 3.8% near surface at about 50 metres. We had an air core rig. We thought this is going to be a really good way to map these carbonatites. Stepped out 200 metres to the west, we hit it again. Stepped out another 200 metres to the west, hit it again. When we stepped out the third time, it really started to get interesting. The grades started to increase. We started to see thick zones of 3+% niobium, which are very high grades in this commodity. And then the fourth time we stepped over and we hit it in 3 consecutive drill holes when we swung the rig around to drill to the south. We've done 4 more drill lines there. They're on their way to the lab. They'll be coming back late August or early September, but I'll just show you a section through that. You're starting to see coherent mineralisation all the way to end a hole. We had 135 metres of rods on the rig. These holes finished in mineralisation. We're going to now drill this trend with RC to find out what's the depth extent of it, and we'll continue to map it out along this on east-west trend with both RC and air core. But it's, I guess, a demonstration of how the sort of results you can get in this extraordinary new region. Moving to the south, 10 kilometres to the south, this is just northwest of the Lerney deposit, our Emily deposit. We focus a line of air core drilling based on that magnetic low. We hit 3 80-metre spaced holes. They all finished in 2.7% niobium. It's about 200 metres wide. The follow-up drilling is going to see what sort of strike we get, and that's going to happen in the coming months. Moving over to the east, the green prospect, really broad-spaced air core, stepping out over 400 to 800 metres, continually hitting mineralisation through this initial air core program. We've got results from about maybe 20% of the program done so far. We've got about 60 holes that have, air core holes that have left site and are going to come back in September. And then we'll follow up with RC drilling along the most strongly mineralised trends. But you can sort of see the plan here. We've got the baseline geophysics. Air core is going to map the surface. We can go in with deeper drilling and really find the full profile. And I think we're going to Between now and the end of the year, the goal is to start building that inventory of high quality, plus 2% niobium in the near surface while we continue to test new regional targets. The investment in this is probably one of the more nervous checks I wrote when we flew the entire project just about with the Falcon Gravity survey. We felt if we're going to find IOCG copper or carbonatites out here, we needed good gravity coverage. It was a very successful program. It's identified some absolutely stonking gravity anomalies. We've drilled a hole into Percy and Mawson. That core arrived back in Perth last week. It's going to start getting processed next week, and we'll report on that also in September. But some of those big, deep tapping structures that we're seeing in both gravity and magnetics, it really is giving us a bit of a roadmap on how we're going to explore this belt going forward. And you know, it does, when we put it on a PowerPoint slide and it goes up on the screen, it really does, you do lose the scale. When there's a 20-kilometre scale bar there, that's about the extent of what we've explored so far, and there's probably another 50 or 60 kilometres to go. So we've been, this is, I guess, coming up to 3 months worth of drilling this year. We've done over 30,000 metres of air core. The RC rig is due on site next week. We've been doing diamond drilling both at the carbonatites that we've found and also testing major geophysical targets in the region. And we are going as fast as we can to understand what this potential of this new region could be. So what to expect coming up? All that infill drilling, doing some detailed RC. We're going to need to start to understand the metallurgy. Between now and the end of the year, we want to have some really good drilling into all of these targets. We want to rank them on size potential, grade potential, and over the summer we'll be doing metallurgical side of work on each of them, and then looking to start next year with a clear ranking as to which ones of these carbonatites are the best and the ones we should be putting most of the effort in 2025. And continuing to test the new targets, feeding back that information that we're learning along the way, and seeing what this belt holds, because up to now it's been a pretty incredible start. So I'll just, in the time remaining, we've got an enormous project portfolio in the Northern Territory. It's about 30,000 square kilometres. South32 and IGO are two partners of us in copper. IGO is currently drilling in the Paterson province under an earning agreement with us, and South32 is going to start drilling next month at the Jessica project. So the next few months, the amount of activity coming up is probably more than we've ever had in our existence. We're continuing to advance our copper project in parallel. We don't want these to not go forward because we're doing so much work in the West Arunta. We're just drilling a hole at our Sandover project there. You can see in the southern part of that image. It's about 170 kilometres north of Alice Springs. It's just off the Stuart Highway. It's a much easier project to operate than the West Arunta. It is genuinely close to infrastructure. It's got a gas pipeline and a railway line going through it, but it was essentially completely untested. We went in there and identified this early on when government was releasing new government data sets in the Northern Territory, and we were targeting this for copper. We identified this old reports from the 70s and 80s, where you can see that green horizon on the right of the image there. That's an outcropping malachite horizon that had been mapped in the 60s, 70s and 80s, predominantly by CRA. It's only about 20 centimetres wide, but it extends for over about 20 kilometres, and it's not hard to find. The view was that if that's outcropping there, could you follow that into the basin and find a really good reductant? And we're looking for African sediment-hosted copper here. And we did a gravity survey and a magnetic survey. It identified a pretty interesting spot at the other end of the basin, whatever it is, about 120 kilometres away. We drilled one hole late last year. We didn't hit the reductant that we were looking for, but we extended the hole and we banged into it was only 30 centimetres, but it was going 2% copper right at the base of the basal contact of that neoprote basin. That tells us that there's been a highly charged copper fluid active in this basin, both in the southeast and the northwest. We're just drilling another hole 2.5 kilometres closer to the feeder source, and we'll be We'll be finishing that hole and getting those assays, and I think we're very keen to see what happens up here, whether we can prove that the copper's still continuing up in this part of the basin. And you know, that's 150 kilometres, and the extent of the drilling is 2 holes drilled by CRA in 1994, and our 2 drill holes at that north west part of the basin. So, just in wrapping up, we've always been aggressive at moving into new areas. Greenfields exploration 10 years ago was a very difficult sell. At the moment, there's lots of people wanting to push into new regions and find new things that have got serious scale potential. The primary focus has been copper. We're starting to find enormous amounts of niobium and rare earths in the West Arunta, with an incredible strike rate of hitting mineralisation. We're going to continue to advance that in conjunction with our copper and look to unlock potential for and value for our shareholders through Greenfields exploration. Thank you very much.